So our program tonight is called Human Trafficking. Yes, it is in our backyard. What I seek to do tonight is to inform you on what human trafficking is, where it is, what it looks like, and most importantly, what each and every one of us can do about it. Human trafficking is better known as modern-day slavery. There's more slavery in our world today than there's ever been at any point in history. Matter of fact, as you sit here this evening, there are more folks that are enslaved than there were in the 400 years combined that people were stolen out of Africa and sold into slavery around our world. And I thought, how could this be? Certainly this must be a problem that's over there, some other country, and it is, but it's also right here as well. So there's different forms of slavery, modern-day slavery. We're going to hit on the two top ones, which is the slave labor industry, and I think that's generally what we think of when we think of a slave, as somebody doing physical work. That comprises the majority of slavery worldwide, but not so within the United States. Slave labor still happens here, and we'll hit on that briefly in a few minutes, but it is by far the sex slave industry right here in the United States. So to tell you a little bit about myself, my name is Brenda Lutz. I'm an ambassador of hope for Shared Hope International. Shared Hope was started in 1998 by then Congresswoman Linda Smith. When she learned about the plight of the children stuck in the sex slave industry in other parts of our world, she knew she needed to do something about that. So she formed Shared Hope. A few years into it, however, they realized that, hey, wait a second. This is happening right here in America to our American children. So Shared Hope is really credited in a lot of ways with the laws, not only the awareness of the United States and what's going on, but the laws that have been passed and the just even down to the terminology that we use. I'm also part of Living in Liberty, and Living in Liberty is a local organization started right over here in Gibsonia in fact, I think Elizabeth is here with us tonight. Are you here, Elizabeth? There she is over here. We're very pleased to have you with us tonight. Thank you. Living in Liberty has a rescue home in the North Hills. So women rescued locally out of human trafficking can go there and basically build a life. A lot of these women have been sold at a very young age, and so they basically need to build their life from the ground up, and Living in Liberty has a complete program for them. They have two repurposed stores. One is right on McKnight Road in the North Hills, so that you can donate items to them as well as go to the shop and purchase things from them. All that helps to fund the things that the women need to build their lives. They're hoping to open another rescue home here in the spring, and long-term goal is to get something going right here in Butler County. I don't know if you're aware, but most of the other counties around us have anti-human trafficking groups working within their counties to combat this issue. Butler County does not as yet. We need it, but not yet. So we're hoping that tonight can be a catalyst for that. If God's laid it on your heart to really get up and do something, this is your time to make some connections and get something going right here. They're an excellent group. They have over 100 volunteers, and yes, they're just fantastic to work with. Now, my journey down human trafficking started a number of years ago when I came across a book. The title caught my eye, so I bought it, read it, and it changed me. The name of that book was The Good News About Injustice. It was written by Gary Hagan. He's the gentleman that started the International Justice Mission. And the good news about injustice is you and I. We're called to be the good news about injustice in our world, and we need to do that. And then a couple of years ago, I was at a Catalyst convention in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I heard a woman speak by the name of Christine Kane. She's a phenomenal little fireball of a preacher from Australia, and her husband started another anti-human trafficking organization called A21. And as I sat there in that middle of that auditorium, literally amongst thousands of people, I knew that God was speaking directly to my heart and said, Brenda, you need to do something about this. And I went, what? What am I going to do about it? So I came home from that and I began to educate myself. I learned everything I could about human trafficking, where it is, who it affects, who's at risk, how do we rescue those, how do we bring justice, how do we prevent it from happening. What I learned was that in the United States of America, our children are the ones on the front line. Now, I've worked with kids for over 25 years on a volunteer basis, and so I knew I needed to get some way for them to understand what was going on. So through that, I very prayerfully started developing a program that's now called Take a Walk in My Shoes, and it is an interactive introductory experience into human trafficking for teens from 6th through 12th grade. It falls under Living in Liberty's umbrella, and it's like I said, it's an interactive program, so the kids actually go through stations where they have to be homeless, where they have to be part of a mock slave labor and a mock sweatshop. We bring them back together, and then we talk to them about what it looks like right here in the United States. We show them a video of which you all are going to have the opportunity to view here in a little bit. So let's get into more of the nuts and bolts of human trafficking and what it looks like. So how are humans exploited? Well, we talked a little bit about the sex slave industry. And when within the United States, the DMST, which is domestic minor sex trafficking. So keep in mind, too, not all prostitution is human trafficking, but all prostitution of somebody under the age of 18 is. So it can encompass prostitution, your pornography industry, and all those types of things. The forced labor industry, I briefly spoke about that, and I told you that, yes, that also does happen here in the United States. An example of that is last year, Frontline did a story called Trafficked in America. You can look it up. And it was on the largest egg producer in the United States. Do you know what their labor force was? Guatemalan children. What they would do is the traffickers go to the poor countries such as Guatemala and tell them that, hey, we've got jobs in America for these young boys. We really need the help. They're going to get educated. They're going to make all this money. All you have to do is pay for their ticket here. They're very poor families, and they can't do it. So the trafficker very nicely says, no problem, we'll pay for their ticket. They'll pay us back in no time. I know in Ohio where they had a single-wide trailer. There was either 10 or 12 boys in one single-wide trailer, no running water, no heat. They were made to work anywhere from 12 to 18 hours a day. And if they said, no, we're not going to do this, we want to go back home, they said, fine, we just took your family's property or home. So does it happen here? It does. I especially say, like, if you travel at all, if you're in hotels, restaurants, things like that, please educate yourself on it. Those are hot spots where you will find a lot of the trafficking that literally happens right under our noses, and we don't see it. So other forms of trafficking can include child begging, removal of organs, child soldiers, forced marriages, illegal adoptions. I'm going to briefly touch on the removal of organs. A21 campaign, when all the unrest was going on, had started in Syria, and there were so many refugees coming out of Syria. They were finding that many of them just disappeared, particularly the children. The children are just whisked off by the traffickers and sold directly into the sex slave industry or slave labor industry. So they began to put up stations along the borders to help the folks that are coming out and educate them on the slavery that was going on. Along with that, though, they found quite a number of bodies with the organs missing because they harvested them. It's amazing to me what we as human beings can do to each other. So let's talk about the United States. First off, human trafficking is the fastest growing crime worldwide. It is second only to drug trafficking, but it's growing at a rapid rate because many of the drug traffickers are finding out that it's far more profitable to sell human beings with a lot less risk than it is to sell drugs. And I'll explain that in a few minutes. 85% of the victims are United States citizens, and that's something that I think is a myth. We often think that, they're trafficked in from other countries. When you find out how this works and what they do, we have made it so easy in the United States of America for them to get the kids, there's no need for them to go outside. They have a renewable resource right here, unfortunately. The average age of a child sold into the sex slave industry is 13 years old. That's boys and girls both. We are seeing that number come down as the demand for younger and younger children is going up. So that number's coming down some. The average life expectancy, once they're sold into the sex slave industry, is 7 years. They are 220 times more likely to be murdered than you or I, just from the sheer brutality of the industry. A child is worth as much as $250,000 to their trafficker. Let that sink in for a minute. It's $250,000 a kid. This is big business. And they go hand in hand with the drugs. If you've got a drug problem, you've got a human trafficking problem. You might not know it, but it is there as well. The stranger danger, because we all hear about stranger danger, and we're all watching our kids, right? And that can happen. Somebody can steal your child. That can happen. But that comprises about 3% of all the kids that are found in the sex slave industry. 3%. The other 97% have some sort of relationship with their trafficker. That means that, I don't know if you've heard of the grooming process, and we'll go into that a little bit more, but they develop some sort of a relationship and a trust bond a lot of times with that child. So definitely they can be stolen, but more than likely it's somebody that's going to build some sort of a relationship with them. 99% of all buyers are men. This is a supply and demand industry. If there was no demand, there would be no supply. We would not be having this conversation right now. When I started learning these things, light bulbs started going off in my head. I live just over the line in Beaver County, and I don't know if you travel that way very often, but Beaver County, the face of it is changing rapidly. We've got a processing plant being built in Beaver County right now, 6,000 jobs, most of them transient, most of them men. You can't drive anywhere in our area without hitting a gas well. All of that is wonderful for our economy, but I knew it had to be driving the demand up. Just like when you hear the Super Bowl, anytime there's a lot of transient men, you're going to see the human trafficking go up. By and large, let me tell you, men are wonderful, and most men are wonderful. So this is no way by anything negative towards men. We've got a lot of fantastic, wonderful men, but there's that percentage that is not. So when I knew that this had to be going up, I just didn't know how to find that statistic out. Last year, I had the opportunity to be part of a discussion panel on human trafficking at the Beaver Falls Library. And during that time, one of the audience asked, "Is this really a problem in our area?" And one of the girls on the panel said, "I can answer that for you." She said, 4 years ago, we started a street ministry called Standing in the Gap on the streets of Beaver Falls. We minister to homeless, prostitutes, drug addicts, whoever's there. She said, 4 years ago, we might see 1 or 2 new girls show up on the streets of Beaver Falls in a month. Right now, we're seeing 10 to 12 new girls every month show up. She said, and don't think these are 20 and 30-year-old women. They may look like it, but some of them drive down in their parents' nice car with a little sticker on the back window of what high school they go to. So yes, this is a problem in our area. Just last week, I spoke to a woman from the state of Pennsylvania on the Victims Advocates Center, and I mentioned about the gas wells, and she said to me, funny you should mention that. She said, we've got a problem right now in Wellsboro, PA. And if you're familiar where that is, it's gorgeous. It's where the Grand Canyon of Pennsylvania is. It's a Norman Rockwell, tiny little town. She said, we're actually having limousines full of prostitutes being brought in to service the gas well men that are there. She said, this is a huge problem. So we see it, Cranberry's part of Butler County. You've got a lot of major highways around here. It's here. We've had a lot of, there's been busts in Cranberry. Of course, that's a little more popular area, and a lot of hotels popping up and things like that. This is another reason why this is so important. The education, we need our first responders educated. We need the workers in different areas, whether it's hotels areas or hair and nail salons, people to know and be able to recognize what some of these signs are. So when they have kids or they encounter something, they can make a phone call or know that maybe something else is going on. Shared Hope has a saying that says, if we are able to arrest every pimp or trafficker, if we are able to rescue every victim, if we did all of this, but we leave demand unchecked, the market will continue to operate. And that's just a fact. It's driven by money. So let's take a look at demand. Addressing demand. Talked a little bit about the role of pornography. The role of pornography in the sex slave industry is massive. It's kind of like a spider web with pornography at the center of it. Not only is it, they use it to teach and train the kids that they're selling. That's how they train them, what to say, what to do, what not to do, those kinds of things. But pornography also is an addiction like any other drug addiction, and it does the same kinds of things to the brain. So just like a drug, when you get to a point, you need to get more to get that same high. Pornography does the same thing. And so where you have somebody that wouldn't take it to a certain level, now they need to go to that next level. With the lovely invention of the little iPhones that we all have in our hands now these days, and there's some great things about them, but you can literally go on there and order a child the same as you would order a pizza and have them delivered to your room, your office, or meet them at the hotel. They've made it that simple. Thankfully, very thankfully, we've got some folks here that are going to be part of our panel later that work very diligently to stop this. And these guys are fantastic at what they do, and I'm honored to have them here tonight to help inform you better of what to do and what to look for. The laws in our country are beginning to change. We're seeing some things happen, but a lot more needs to be done. If you view porn, you are creating demand, and you are responsible for those effects. Tough thing to say, but it's truth for men and women both. Particularly in our youth and the youth culture, the porn addiction has just skyrocketed. It's at their fingertips all the time, and we're just becoming desensitized to so much of it. So one thing I want to hit on is the NCOSE Dirty Dozen list, and I wrote that down because I knew I wouldn't remember what the NCOSE stood for. Hang on a second. It's the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. The Dirty Dozen list, awesome thing to look up. It gives you the top 12 companies that either because of what they do or what they don't do support human trafficking. They also have a list on there of companies in the past that have been on there, and because of folks like you getting on there and saying, hey, I want this to change, they've changed what they've done. So it does work. But it's a great little thing to check out. For labor trafficking, you can download the Sweat and Toil app onto your phone. It lets you scan a product, and it can tell you if anywhere in that line of that product being produced, whether there was slavery involved in producing your products. So there's a lot of things out there that we can do to just educate ourselves. We've got a lot of power. We just need to use it and let them know, hey, we care about this. The Nordic model, I'm briefly going to touch on that. That's an anti-human trafficking model that a lot of other countries around quite a few of other countries around our world have adopted that has worked. They hit more at the demand side as well. So there's stiffer penalties for traffickers. There's stiffer penalties for buyers. I don't know if you're aware, but last fall, the Safe Harbor Bill finally passed in the state of Pennsylvania, which protects a child, and they can, if they are arrested, they're no longer charged as a prostitute, but now they can be charged as a human trafficking victim and get help. Now, that just went into law, from what I understand, in February. So before that time, a child as young as 10, 12, 14 years old in the state of Pennsylvania can be charged with prostitution instead of as a human trafficking victim. It's amazing to me that we won't let somebody vote until they're 18. We won't let them drink alcohol until they're 21. But, if they want to be a prostitute, they're just selling their body at 14, right? What's the difference? No, it is human trafficking. But the Nordic model, there are models out there that we can, as in the United States or in the state of Pennsylvania, can start adopting to change some of these so that there's stiffer penalties. I'm all for putting the buyers on big billboard signs. We have plaster picture everywhere. But, yes. So when we're talking about the United States, California is the top state for human trafficking. It made sense to me. It's a huge state. It's got a lot of coastline. Texas is number 2. Florida is number 3. Anybody have a guess what the 4th highest state for human trafficking is in the U.S.? I heard Pennsylvania. Okay, Pennsylvania, we're currently ranked 9th. 3 years ago, we were 16th. We're now 9th. The good and bad in that is things like this is the positive, because we are becoming more aware of it as Pennsylvania citizens, and we're saying no more, and we're making phone calls, and we're doing what we need to do. The other part of that is it is going up. And somebody said the 4th highest state, what is it? Ohio. It is Ohio, yes. And if you're like me, I went Ohio. I've been there. There's not a lot there. That's part of the problem, though. Ohio has a lot of major highways connecting big cities. and a lot of truck stops along the way. Truck stops are hotbeds for human trafficking. The buyers are very well connected. I don't like to call them pimps at all. I think changing our terminology is very important. If you hear the word pimp, what do you think of, right? I think of like, oh, I've pimped out my truck, or I'm cool and I've got all this. We've made it a very cool thing in our society. The reality is they're very brutal slave owners, period. That's what they are. And the same thing with prostitution. When you hear prostitute, what do you get a picture in your head? Yeah, somebody out there just selling their body, wanting to be out there like it's some kind of glamorous thing. The reality is a great, vast majority of these are children that have had no choice and have gotten sold into this industry. That's the reality. So if you take a look here, you can see where this red line comes starting in Illinois area, comes right down through, straight through Pennsylvania and up that east coast. So we are right smack dab in the hotbed of where the human trafficking is happening. And as you can see, that it is the 2016 National Human Trafficking Hotline cases is where this map was made from. There's the National Human Trafficking Hotline number. This is one time I say you've got a phone on you, get it out and take a picture. Do it now. I will also we'll have it at the end with some other numbers on. Get them in your phone, because there's going to be some point in time where you're somewhere and like something just doesn't seem quite right. Make the phone call. Make the phone call. I tell kids all the time when I'm working with them, God gave you that gut feeling for a reason. Listen to it. Listen to it. So if there's some time you're at a place and you're like, that just didn't look right. I said that the truck stops are a hotbed a lot of times. So when one of the buyers, if the slave owner has a buyer for this motif of a kid and somebody on the other side of the country has a kid, bam, they sell them, ship them on the next truck, boom, they're halfway across the country like that. Some positives in that. There's now a group called Truckers Against Trafficking, TAT, T-A-T, that are truckers that have come together and said, no, we're not going to put up with this. We want to see this stopped. Incidentally, when we hear the word human trafficking, we often think that means moving, right? Moving from one spot to another, and that very often is the case, but not always. They literally can traffic a kid right out of their own home by using the techniques that they do. So who are most at risk when you're talking about the youth? Well, certainly the kids that are the homeless, the runaways, 1 out of 7 will end up being trafficked is the estimate on that. I don't know if you're aware, but if you run away in the United States of America and you go to a homeless shelter, by law they have to send you back home. That's awesome for the kid that doesn't want to listen to mom and dad and wants to live their own life and they're going to run away and do it. Fine, ship their butts back home. But by and large, the kids that are out there because they're being abused at home. And so they get out there and they have nowhere to go. That's where it makes it very easy for the trafficker. As easy as, wow, do you need some food? I have some food. Here you go. Wow, you're beautiful. I can help you. Come on. I can take care of you. Bam. They're gone. The kids that are involved with the child welfare or juvenile justice system, the amount of kids that are missing out of foster care is through the roof. Particularly the older kids, they get in, they run away. Nobody's there to hunt them. Nobody's there to say, we don't know where this kid went. And I just spoke with somebody the other day that they're in a spot and didn't know what to do with it because they've got a kid that is in foster care that they know was trafficked at one time. And the foster family where she's at, she's going to run away again. And they're like, what do we do? So I don't have all the answers by far, but I'm saying together we can all do something, and some of these things need to change, and we need to know that those kids are in really high risk. So kids where sexual abuse, extreme trauma, substance abuse, the LGBT community of kids questioning their gender, that is huge in our culture right now. And for whatever weird reason, a lot of times they're in higher demand. So they fall under a higher risk area. The one I really want to hit on, though, is the last one. Feelings of not fitting in or being different or weird. Let me tell you something. I work with 13-year-old girls right now. That's my small group girls. There isn't a kid out there that's 13 that doesn't feel like they're weird or different or don't fit in. Why? Because they're not supposed to. That's why God made them that way. They're trying to figure out who they are, and that's okay. But that's what the traffickers capitalize on. That's why every kid's at risk. It doesn't matter what safe home they come from or how many safety measures somebody's put up. When you learn how these traffickers work, if they have been targeted and they want them, they're all at risk because they're excellent at what they do. Keep in mind, again, how much those kids are worth. So they'll go to great lengths sometimes to get them. All of this is not to scare anybody, but it is to inform you. Why? Because education is power. It's to empower you. It's to empower your kids so that they know what signs to look out for as well. So how are they recruited? Well, through the social media is a huge, obviously, and that's why we have guys like Joe, who will be part of our panel that works on the Acervo project and works with the dark web and doing everything they do there to help protect our kids. Other places anywhere the kids hang out, of course, they can be there. The boyfriending is a huge tactic that is going to be part of the little DVD we're going to show here shortly. A lot of them use that. Offers of false employment or, a modeling, dancing opportunities, things like that they'll use. Even, how many of you, spring's coming up, we've all seen those little signs along the road that says, work $12 an hour, $20 an hour, call this number, right? And I'm not saying all of them are, but I know that some of them are just traffickers trying to get people that are on the edge and really need the money. That are the most in need. Jillian, who's going to be part of our panel up here too, said that they had traced some of them back and it was just an empty warehouse is all it was. So I pull them out when I see them, but just a thought. Yes, so offers that just seem to be, too good to be true or straight up abduction. So what we're going to do now is we're going to show the Chosen film. This is a DVD that was produced by Shared Hope International, and it is the true story of two American girls. One was trafficked on her 13th birthday, and one was this close to being trafficked. So let's take a moment and we'll watch that.
We're working with what we have, and I was like, what do we have? And she's like, your body.
I didn't know about sex trafficking until I was in the middle of it.
After a while, you just kind of get used to it. Like, everything that goes around just doesn't seem out of ordinary to you.
We really believed that she was getting ready to be sold.
So, Brianna, how old are you?
5 and a kid's welcome. Let me join in.
Whenever you're missing the kids.
I think the most common way we've seen these traffickers or pimps get involved in these girls' lives is they pretend to be an older boyfriend. And really, again, we're talking about young girls that could be 12, 13, 14 years old, and perhaps they've never had a boyfriend. So to have this older male come into their life who's pretty charming, who's pretty charismatic, and suddenly paying attention to them like they've never had it before, offering to buy them things, offering to take them to dinner, to movies, have their hair done, their nails done, a tanning salon. This connection's made, and these young girls actually fall in love with these guys and believe that this guy loves them back. And then one day he asks for something, and even though she doesn't want to do it, she's so worried about losing him that she will. And once he's had her do it once, he pretty much can control her from then on, through shame, through drugs, through threats about family or physical beatings. But the reality is it can be any girl. And we've learned that through experience, unfortunately, that girls from good homes, girls that have good grades, do all the right things, can still be exposed to this. The 17-year-old girl that I'm familiar with, her name is Brianna. And Brianna comes from a small town, was an A student, an athlete, volunteered in her community, was a cheerleader, and attended college while going to high school. And she came into my life through a phone call I received on a Saturday night.
My name's Brianna, and I didn't know about sex trafficking until I was in the middle of it. I'm sure you're like me, where you think that sex trafficking wouldn't affect your life, but I'll tell you my story. I was from a small town and just really enjoyed being a part of the community. When I was in high school, I actually took college courses because I knew that I wanted to be a nurse. I was really excited about getting my education started, and I knew that I could really focus myself while I was in high school to get those A's I needed in college. I was waitressing and just doing a good job. I was always really friendly and would have conversations with my customers. What I didn't realize was that one of my customers, he was gathering information about me through our innocent conversations, where I was going to school, what my family was like, you know, what I wanted to be. He was gathering information about me to eventually use it against me. I was just at work one evening, and some guys came in, and they were really cool. One, his name was Nick, and he was like 24. He played football at a university. He was tall and blonde, and he was super funny. We were just like laughing the entire time that he was having his meal. He told me that he was from Seattle, which I thought was just a coincidence. And I told him that, you know, wow, I want to move there. And we were just flirting the whole time, and he was telling me how beautiful I am and making me feel good about myself. At the end of the conversation with Nick, he gave me his phone number, and we talked for quite a bit of time. I made a choice that night, but I found out that they actually had chosen me. When I decided to go up and hang out with Nick in Seattle, I couldn't tell my parents because they wouldn't let me. So since he was older, I had to make a lie to get around my parents. So I told them that I was going to hang out with my girlfriend for the day. When I got to Seattle, I pulled up to a gorgeous house. It was Victorian style, and it had a lake view. I was blown away. I didn't realize that when I was meeting his friends, they were actually shopping me. And they were seeing if they wanted to buy me, or if they knew somebody that might want to buy me. So I didn't realize that his friends were traffickers too. And he was so smooth and came off so sincere and genuine. When I asked him how am I gonna get a job, you know, what am I gonna do? He said, you know, you could waitress, you're good at that. I saw you waitressing, you're good at that, but how much do you usually make in a night? And I told him that I usually make about $85. He told me to put a 0 on that 85, and that's how much I could bring in a night with the job that he knew of. He told me that his ex-girlfriend was a dancer and that it was really easy, and that I could probably do it. And for a minute I considered dancing. I was thinking, well, probably isn't that bad. And then he said, okay, let's go to the strip club. I felt like if I didn't go to the strip club with him, that he would look at me as just a child, as a kid. You know, here I am, I'm 18, I can go into a strip club at this point. And it was kind of like, if you don't, then you're not an adult. That's how I felt. This strip club was just really loud and dark. It was gross and it smelled. It didn't feel very comfortable, and you know, it's like everything has this like sticky look to it. You don't really want to touch anything because everything's got germs on it. I felt kind of gross that I was even in there. I was only in the club for 2 nights dancing, but in that time frame, a lot of guys wanted to take me home, and one guy, he offered me $1,000 for an hour, and I couldn't believe it. So me and Nick talked about going to Arizona, and we both decided that I needed to return my dad's car. On my way to return my dad's car, I was calling friends to help me move out and get the car returned and then get me back up to Seattle. So the only friend that offered to help was my ex-boyfriend, and his name was Evan. I was surprised that he was going to help, but we just kept a really close relationship. We were good friends still. So when I got to his house, though, he was asking me so many questions. Evan was so concerned about where did they get all this money and why aren't they working. He was asking just these questions, and I was starting to realize that he didn't really want to help me. And then I realized that he was trying to talk me out of going to Arizona and moving out. And so I wanted to go. I wanted to leave. So on my way of walking out of Evan's door, his parents were there. I felt like Evan betrayed me because he called his parents and my parents to try to help convince me not to go to Arizona and not to move out. And, you know, here I am, given all these opportunities to go to school in Seattle. I felt like it was a dream come true. I was going to Arizona for winter break, and they all didn't see it. I felt like my family and Evan, they wanted to keep me just in this little bubble, and that I'm just a child and I don't really know what I'm doing. So I was upset. I was really mad at Evan. I felt like he completely was ruining our friendship. He had lost my trust. And a woman walked into the room and introduced herself. Her name was Linda Smith, and she was a specialist in getting girls to recognize and flee from human trafficking. After a long conversation with Linda, I started realizing and recognizing that I was being groomed for trafficking, that I was in the middle of the process, and that it was almost too late. I thought Nick was the good guy and Evan was the bad guy, but now I realized he saved my life. Nick was grooming me to be trafficked. I started getting angry and upset. Linda, from all the stories that she was telling me, she told me one about a 13-year-old girl who was tricked on the night of her birthday.
Monday through Friday, never wanted to miss school. I love school, I love being around my friends, and my science class was my big thing. We were walking down the street, coming back from the little corner store, and there was these white guys out there, saying, yeah, there's a party. You guys should really come, and you guys would have fun. We were like, okay, well, we're going into 8th grade. We might as well get our first party out. Let's just go have fun. It was just a quiet neighborhood. And so we were like, it's cool. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? So we were like, yeah, this is harmless. It's like one of those ones you see in a movie. It was fun. And I was sitting on the couch just listening to music. My friends were off dancing and stuff. And some really cute guy comes up and starts talking to me. And I'm like, just like sitting there. Like, he was really persistent on like talking to me and trying to get to know me. He was like 20, 23 or something like that. I was at Starbucks ordering a drink, and he had said, hey, do you remember me? And I was like, nope, sorry, nope, don't remember you. And he's like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure I remember you. I was like, okay, whatever. So I gave him my number, and we talked for a little bit and hang out. And we'd go to like movies and malls, trips and stuff like that. And it was pretty cool. Like, I'd never had a boyfriend before, so it was like cool. Like, he bought me a dress, and it was like just like really special to me. It was like I felt like I was like a princess, like a queen or something. And he used to call me his queen. I started thinking, he really did like me, and listening to all the dreams he was like trying to sell. He wants to marry me and stuff like that. And he can't wait for us to move in together and have a life. He kept saying that he needed money, and he was going to lose his cars and his house and stuff, and he's not going to have anywhere to go. So I was like, I'll help you, whatever. And so we went to the strip club, and like, it was just like super uncomfortable. So I went out of the room, and he started yelling at me, like, and I was like, I'm not doing that, I want to go home. And he wouldn't let me go home till my shift was over. I was 13 when I started in the strip clubs. I signed up for track, and during track, like, I'd just kind of not go, and I'd go spend them with him or whatever. And then I started going to strip clubs for him, and what I'd do is we'd go to school on the bus, and then right when I got off the bus, I'd just kind of leave and go meet him down the street or something. And then just as the buses were pulling up, I'd be back on the bus, so it was like I went to school. And I'd leave for like weekends saying I'm at my friend's house, and like whenever my mom would call on my friend's phone, we'd just three-way call it so it sounded like we were together, because my friends would cover for me. I was on the phone with him, and he was like cussing me out, saying, he didn't know why I even bothered with school, I wasn't going to be anything, because that's who I am. And like, I hung up the phone, and I like kind of dropped a couple tears. And I had this friend, Jordan, and she was like, why would you believe somebody saying that they love you when they treat you? And I really didn't have an answer for that back then. He loves me, that's all I could really think in my head. And that night, my first night, I got in the car with 3 people. They were all like in their 40s and 50s, maybe older. Like, I don't know, I puked for about 30 minutes. Most of like my tricks and stuff were kind of old. I was scared, I was nervous. I didn't want to do it, but I couldn't come back without any money. He's kind of a very physical kind of person. He, like, you mess up something, he'll slap you, or, depending on what you did, he'll, like, choke you out.
They were threatening to go get her 10-year-old sister. They were threatening to go beat up her family. And they had taken video of Lacey being raped the first night and threatened that they were going to use video of her having sex with other men to show to her youth group and to show to her school. She wouldn't have felt like she belonged anywhere. She didn't feel like she belonged with her pimp, but she wasn't safe going home. I just didn't know about trafficking and that there were older men preying on teenagers to bring them to a market, to sell them. Traffickers go anywhere that there's a large group of girls or that girls frequent, like the mall or Starbucks. They'll go to arcades, anywhere that teenagers like to hang out at, parks. restaurants. Signs that you can watch out for your friends would be small tattoos or a tattoo of a name. Maybe your friend has an older boyfriend that she's trying to keep a secret, or she has new clothes that are really expensive, like a $300 purse or a really nice jacket. If your friend asks you to cover for her, don't do it. You're not doing her a favor. You could be helping her destroy her own life. And just like her, you don't know that what she's doing is so dangerous, but you'll never see her again. So what can we do to fight sex trafficking? I think the most important thing that we can do is get the word out. The only way to protect girls from sex trafficking is to be educated on what sex trafficking looks like. If you can't recognize the signs, you're not going to save your friend.
I think Evan was a true defender of Brianna. You know, he took a chance, he stepped out, he told the truth, he told what was going on with her. He violated her trust in the interest of protecting her. And I think that's a good lesson for us. Had he not done that, we might not have Brianna here with us today. I think what's important to understand is that these pimps have studied, preyed upon, stalked these girls. They do know where they live. They do know about their family. And when they threaten these girls don't feel safe. They don't feel that they have the ability to return home. And that was one of the questions we used to struggle with is, if this girl was doing something she didn't want to do, why wouldn't she just leave? And the fact is they can't see their way out of it. They don't see a safe way out of it. I would want to make sure that you understand where these guys are at. They're at your malls, they're at your stores, they're at places where kids congregate. Really, probably the biggest key is these older boyfriends. You heard Brianna talking about it. An older, mid-20s male has no business being around 13, 14-year-old girls, or even up to 18-year-old girls. So protect your friends. When we look back at Lacey's friends who really could have intervened at different points in her life and didn't, she's never seen those friends again. So the fact they thought maybe they were protecting her at the time really never helped her, and they've never been around in her life since.
When I'm working with the students and after we see this film, I tell them, give them this example. If I'm a bad person and I want to make money, and I can go over here and I buy $50 worth of drugs, and I go over here and I sell it for $100, and then I've got to go back and get more drugs, and I got to sell it again. But if I take that same $50 worth of drugs and I give it to this kid, unbeknownst to them a lot of times, at least in the beginning, and now I've got a line of 10 men waiting to pay me $100 a pop to rape her. I just made $950 in less than a day's time. On top of that, because I've properly groomed her, because I got to know her and I know where her family is, and I've told her that I'm going to go get her little sister if she tells anybody, or I've made her watch as I brutalized another child in my care, she's not going to tell anyone. And that's why it's the fastest growing crime in our country today, because it is safer than drug trafficking and it's worth more money. Another reason why we have a couple of our panel members that are trained in forensic interviewing. It takes somebody with special talents and gifts to know how to talk to these kids when they are brought in, because they are going to lie. There's been so many layers of trauma that they've been through that if you're asked, hey, is this happening to you? They're going to swear, and they may even truly believe, no, this isn't happening to me, because of the trauma they've experienced. So the training of our first responders, the training of those that are in hospitals or teachers and things like that are so vitally important to really get in and help these kids. My part, when I started down this road, I just felt that I was being called to the prevention end of it. Let's let them now know what's going on. I tell the kids, if you're the one that is chosen, you're probably not going to know, because the traffickers are that good. But you may recognize it in a friend and be able to step in like Brianna's friend Evan did for her and save her life. So don't they choose this life? I mean, after all, isn't the oldest profession? Prostitution's the oldest profession, right? Love it when I hear that. Might be the oldest oppression. That I agree with. I think, as you can see from the video and from what we've learned so far tonight, that many times they don't have a choice. They're coerced, they're lied to, and before they know it, they're in there. And then how do they get out? Where do they go? What do they do with it? I'm going to read you a poem here, and it's out of the book called Renting Lacey. I highly recommend this read for anybody that really wants to understand what's going on with our children in America today. It was written by Linda Smith, who started Shared Hope International, and is called When I Grow Up. When I grow up, I want to be a prostitute. I want to be used by men however they like. And I'll say, oh, baby, yes, I love it. I love everything about you. And I'll hold back my vomit and keep my smiles on to convince them so that they'll stop slapping me. But because I love it, because I love the taste of everything about them, they'll say that I'm a slut, a dirty little girl who needs to be punished. They'll burn cigarettes into my skin, jab me any place they like, bloody my nose, blacken my eyes, hold a gun to my head, burn me with cigarettes, tattoo me, as their eyes grow large and wild with excitement, and I'll scream and I'll cry because I just can't act anymore. I don't want to be riding a pink bicycle with a basket in the front. I hate those little girls with their hands held tight by their fathers who look at me in disgust and cover their daughters' eyes so they don't see me. I don't want to be one of those girls with a decorated bedroom and frilly pillows on my bed. I don't want to giggle and talk about whether or not a boy likes me. I don't want to decide for myself whether to wait for marriage and be a virgin. When I grow up, I don't want to attend college, consider joining a sorority, or have my own apartment. I don't want to try different career paths to figure out who I am. I don't wish for a wedding in a church or on a beach with my dad walking me down the aisle, little flower petals beneath my feet. Who cares about baby showers or decorating a nursery? I don't want to learn how to cook or decide whether to be a stay-at-home mom or a working mom. I don't want any of these things, because when I grow up, I want to be a prostitute. Now, who can believe that? Edmund Burke said the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. I don't know about all of you, but I am done doing nothing. And together, we can make a difference. We can make a difference right here and all across our world, but we need to do something. So what can we do? Help raise awareness. Tell folks what you've learned tonight. Talk about it. Have a program like this in your community, your church, your workplace, your schools. Educate yourself. It's not that hard to find it, man. You can get on the internet, Google a few things. The slavery footprint, Sweat and Toil app. All those things, you can look at it. Pornography, stop it. It is hurting you and it is hurting a lot of other people. Advocate for justice. Advocate for effective laws. If you're willing to call your senator, if you're willing to call your representative and let them know what's going on, sign up with Living in Liberty. They're right out these doors. Sign up with Shared Hope International. Sign up with one of the other organizations that are here tonight. That way you get that information. All you got to do is make a phone call. They listen. We just need to speak up. Report any suspicious activity. Like I said before, if something just doesn't seem right, say something. Start recognizing what this is. There's some more phone numbers. So if you find somebody's in immediate danger, obviously call 911. But the Pittsburgh FBI number is there. You can call and let them know. The National Human Trafficking Hotline number is there. Some of the folks up here, particularly the Acervo Project, are phenomenal. If you have questions on internet and internet safety, those kinds of things, you can always get their information. And like I said, educate yourself. This concludes this part of our program tonight. I thank you for being here.